Welcome to Bewcastle in the very northeast of Cumbria, pretty much as far northeast in Cumbria as it's possible to go. We're sort of very close to the border here of Scotland and Northumberland, and it's a part of the county I've never visited before. So I thought I'd come up here, and there's a few things of interest here. There's Bewcastle Church, there's Bewcastle Cross, Bewcastle Castle, and there is also an old Roman fort, because we're right on the very northern limit of the Roman Empire. So here we have Bewcastle Cross, which is a Northumbrian cross. It's missing its head, but it dates, they think, from the 7th or 8th century, and it's considered a very fine example of this type of cross. And despite being out in the open to the elements, the carving on that cross is really quite exquisite. So I've just come out of the cold wind. It's a really bitter day, and they've got this rather lovely exhibition space telling you about the history of this corner of Cumbria. And there we have a painting of the cross as it would have been originally, with the top of the cross, the head of the cross still intact. So there's information here about the fort that the Romans built, and it's interesting for a number of reasons. First of all, we're actually north of Hadrian's Wall, so the fort here was built to patrol the area north of the wall. But the other interesting feature is the shape of the fort itself, which is six-sided. You see a map there of what it used to look like, with the castle built on the edge. And it was built with six sides to take advantage of the landscape. And the people to first occupy this fort were from modern-day Romania, and they were later replaced by, says here, Northern Germans, and the fort was abandoned in the 4th century. This gives us a good depiction of the carvings on the cross. That's a rather interesting little museum, opened in 2014 by Rory Stewart, who was then MP for this area. And one thing it did say is that this area, this very wild corner of Cumbria, has been occupied for thousands of years. So there's signs of human habitation going back at least 3,000 years, possibly even longer. And as I say, you'd have to be quite a hardy person to live here, especially on a day like today when it's absolutely freezing. I haven't chosen the best day to come, unfortunately. And here we are inside Bewcastle Church. It's still very much in use. Services still continue here on a regular basis. I don't know if it's weekly, but it is still an active church. So here we have a map of the Diocese of Carlisle, and the Diocese of Carlisle basically encompasses pretty much most of Cumbria. The only part of Cumbria not in the Diocese of Carlisle is Alston over here. That's in Cumbria, but that's actually in the Diocese of, is that Diocese of Newcastle or Diocese of Durham? Anyway, but the reason I show you this map is it gives you an indication of where we are. So here we have Barrow-in-Furness, Windermere, Ambleside, Kendal. Where's Kendal? Kendal there. Then we come up, we've got Keswick here. Anyway, and we are up in Bewcastle, which is right up there. There is one other church slightly further north, Nicholforest. One thing I've just noticed about the church is that north-facing wall doesn't have any windows, but there are windows facing south, so I wonder if that's just to try and keep the building a bit warmer. Maybe shield the congregation from the winds that blow in from the north. But that's quite unusual to not have windows on one side of the building. So I'm now going to see if it's possible to gain access to the castle, which is in the grounds of a farm apparently, but looked after by English heritage. So the Roman fort here was actually quite sizable, because I'm actually standing inside the Roman fort, and if I just turn the camera around you might just be able to see the embankments behind me. But the Roman fort goes all the way down there. You can maybe see the car park there. The church is built inside the Roman fort, and the castle, Bewcastle, just over there, or the castle of Bewcastle I should say, that is also inside the Roman fort. So this whole area here is inside the Roman fort. So quite a large and substantial fort. And again, you sort of wonder what it must have been like for these Roman soldiers that were sent here from Romania, modern day Romania, from Germany, what it must have been like for them to live here. It's wild even today. You feel very much right on the edge of things here, and it must have felt even more that way for them all those years ago. And let me just show you here the signpost. So we've got the signpost here, and what I assume is the name of the Roman fort. So just turn that, Fanum Cocodi, probably completely butchering that. But there you've got the sign, so Rome 1,141 miles, and Bird Oswald, well-known fort on Hadrian's Wall, 10 miles away. So we're quite a bit north of Hadrian's Wall. And again, there was trade between the north and the south of Hadrian's Wall. Hadrian's Wall sort of controlled the border, if you like. They managed the border, but the Romans did trade with the people that lived north of the wall. So this fort was here basically just to manage and control this area north of Hadrian's Wall, the very edge of the Roman Empire. They did build the Antonian Wall. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. That was a bit further north of here, but that wall didn't last very long, and the Romans then retreated back to Hadrian's Wall, and that was effectively the border of the Roman Empire, the northern frontier of the Roman Empire. So here we have the castle. Under the care of English heritage, but it is free to enter. So just going to have a little wander around. So it's quite a substantial ruin. And there is here an information board. So again, to show you this map, it's not showing up very clearly, but obviously we are here, the remains of the castle, but you can see the Roman fort, the outline of the Roman fort along there. So we're just in this tiny little corner of the fort, and there's the church and the cross, and remains of a bathhouse and other Roman buildings and so forth. So Bewcastle probably gets its name from the Roman fort here, not from this castle. But it's believed this castle was built probably sometime around 1092. So it's been here a very long time, and has exchanged hands between the English and the Scots, as we're very close to the border with Scotland here. So we can just make out the church just across the field there. As I say, all of this still within the old Roman fort. So I'm walking through the field between the castle and the church, and you can just make out the outlines of buildings here in the Roman fort, which are now buried underground. So here's St Nicholas Church in Nicholforest, which I believe is the most northerly church in the Diocese of Carlisle. Unfortunately, the church is locked. I think it might be open during the day, but I've got here a bit too late. But lovely, well-maintained grounds here. So as the daylight begins to fade, I thought I'd do a short little walk from Nicholforest Church, and I'm just walking a short distance to the border between England and Scotland. In fact, if I turn the camera that way, all the low-lying hills that you can see in front of me and all the hills over there, that's all Scotland. So we're right on the border here between England and Scotland in what used to be known as the Debatables. This was land that was never really controlled either by England or Scotland, and this was in fact Reiver country. So families who would vie for control over the land, they would steal from their neighbours. It was a very lawless area, and it was like that for hundreds of years. So anyway, here we are on the border between England and Scotland. So here we've come to a disused railway line, and I think this is actually the Waverley Route. This was a line that went from Carlisle up to Edinburgh, and they have reopened a section of this route from Edinburgh south, and there is a campaign to try and reinstate the whole of the Waverley Route through to Carlisle. So I think that's where I am, and obviously it'd be great if they did achieve that. Beautiful route going through the Scottish borders. But this used to be a busy railway line. So I was correct, that was the Waverley line. Opened in 1849, closed in 1969, although, as I said, part of the route was reopened in 2015. It's over 98 miles long from Carlisle to Edinburgh. So yes, maybe one day trains will be running up here again. Anyway, I'm almost at the end of the walk, place I wanted to come to, and that is the river which marks the border between England and Scotland. So let's just walk there and have a look at that. So here we are. This is Liddell Water, and it marks the border, at least at this section, between England and Scotland. So the other bank is Scotland, and it's a beautiful river. There's even a little summer house there for people to enjoy, and this would be a beautiful spot to come to on a nice summer's day. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, a slightly different one to one I would normally make, but thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care and God bless.